To follow this course, you'll need to first install WordPress, and I'll show you two options on how you can install it. The first and cheapest option is installing WordPress on your local computer. The second option is installing WordPress on a web host. Let's take a look at both options side by side and see their main differences. Let's start off with the first option, which is installing WordPress on your local computer, and see some information about it. So the first thing here is that when you install WordPress on your local computer, you do not need to pay for anything. It is completely free. However, when you install WordPress on your local computer, your website is not online. So no one can access your website via the internet. There is something called live links that make it possible, but it's not the same thing. It's not what you're thinking about. And I can explain this and show you it later. You lose some functionality when you install WordPress on your computer, like working contact forms or security plugins. These options, these plugins do not work offline. When you have WordPress on your computer, it's still possible to move it from your computer to a web host online. So you don't lose anything. You don't lose your work when you're transitioning from offline to online. And I'll show you how in a later video. Lastly, you don't need the internet to use this feature. So you don't need internet to be able to use WordPress offline. That can be a useful feature when you're traveling remotely. The second option we're going to look at is installing WordPress on a web host. Installing WordPress on a web host will come with domain and web hosting monthly costs. And in a later video, I'll explain what a domain is and what web hosting is. When using WordPress via a web host, you're going to need to register a domain with a domain registrar, like Namecheap, and you'll need to pay for a web host. So you'll pay for both a domain and web host. You need to pay for a web host like Hostinger to host your website, and I'll show you how to set up each service. Setting up WordPress on a web host means your website is live. It's accessible to anyone. However, you can still hide your website if you want to. Lastly, all functionality is available to you. Contact forms, security plugins, they work online, so you will not lose that functionality. My personal suggestion is this. If you're just wanting to experiment with WordPress and play around with it, install it offline to avoid paying domain and hosting fees. However, if you intend to have an active website by the end of the course, a website accessible to everyone, then take the web host option. Either way, even if you choose the offline route, I will show you how you can export your website and import it to a web host for free, preventing you from losing your work and turning your website online simultaneously. In the next section of the course, we will first look at installing WordPress locally onto our computer. If you know that you want to install WordPress on a web host and you don't want to do the local install, then feel free to skip the next lesson and move straight into the Introduction to Domains and Web Hosting lesson. I'll see you in the next video.